The WZ-121 is definitely a tank I thought was worth highlighting. This is a tank I had just recently picked up as a tier 10. And I'll be honest with you, it's one that I never even really cared to have before the buff with increasing it to 5 degrees, whereas before it was only 3 degrees. And I've played with tanks in the past that Wargaming has now buffed and increased their gun depression, but had just had terrible gun depression before, and it was just a rough experience. And just because of that, it never really motivated me to even get this tank, even though I think I had heard in other places and maybe from other YouTubers that the WZ really wasn't a bad tank, but this 5 degrees just has made a big difference, and it really does. Like any extra degree of gun depression, you can really feel that from one tank to the next, even going from something like 5 degrees to 6 degrees. Really being able to get that cannon down is super helpful. And when I had seen this thing as only having 3 degrees before, I was like, no, I am not going to play with a tank with 3 degrees of gun depression. I remember the Object 268 way back in the day had terrible gun arc, terrible gun depression. I can't even remember what the gun depression was, less than 5 degrees or so, but it was just a super stiff tank. And I can only imagine with 3 degrees of gun depression, you guys will have to let me know, those that have had the WZ before the 5 degree gun depression buff, if this was a tank that once you had got, if it was still a tank you really liked or not. If this was a tank that you were like, man, this 3 degrees is just really rough, because I can totally sympathize with those kind of players. With having 3 degrees of gun depression in my mind, you'd have to be on the flattest ground. You couldn't even, if you hit any sort of speed bump, so to say, and you were just on that, 3 degrees isn't really enough to do much of anything. And having to stay on flat ground is really where you'd be almost the whole time when trying to zoom around, just so that you can be in a position to use your gun at all times, as the second you tried going over a hill whatsoever, you just be in a bad position. But I picked up this tank, I started playing it just even yesterday, and it's a good tank. This is very solid, and I love the average damage of its cannon. It's very capable. It's got a very good, pretty good bouncy turret as well. I've been able to bounce some good rounds off of it. The hull, not so much. I feel like I have been getting penetrated quite easily, but this is a tank that I would say if you don't have this, this is a tank that you can really enjoy. It's very, very capable. I still like, in my own personal opinion, the M60 better, but unfortunately that is a premium tank. But yeah, I would have to say this is definitely a medium tank that is up there, very capable. It's got pretty good maneuverability. The gun feels pretty good. The aim time's pretty quick, and the accuracy really doesn't seem that hard. Now, I've been going back and forth. On a medium or light tank, I typically like using rammer because I'm flanking and shooting the sides of tanks, but I have been struggling a bit to penetrate even some. Of course, the Japanese TDs are pretty trollish with their armor. But anyway, I just had to highlight this tank. Definitely worthy. It's a great tank. You don't have it. This is one to grind for and get. This is the muffin here. You guys stay cool and keep tanking.